Good morning and welcome to The Point. It is Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. Thank you to those of you on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20, and good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. This morning our virtual guest is Public Relations Officer of the National Democratic Congress, Ms. Claudette Joseph, and we're talking, of course, issues of national importance that is of concern to the NDC. Good morning, Ms. Joseph.
Good morning, Blossom, and how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Yes, you look very sprightly and like you're in the Christmas spirit.
You know how it is. Yes, that time of the year, it happens naturally. You just get into that zone.
Exactly.
Special good morning to all of your viewers and listeners on GBN. And of course, it's always good to be here. Bringing the message of the NDC.
Appreciate it. So one time, same time. Let's start with one of the most recent issues. A concern raised by the National Bus Association late last week into Sunday as it relates to the Traffic Amendment Bill and proposed changes for that bill and how it would affect Grenadians. First, for the people who may not be aware, just break down for us the NDC's interpretation or your interpretation of the amendment for the traffic bill.
Yes, we have a bit of legislation that governs the regulation of traffic in Grenada, road traffic. It's called the Road Traffic Act. And recently, the Parliament of Grenada tabled an amendment to that bit of legislation. Now, under the principal legislation, that's a Road Traffic Act, there was an amendment in 2018 that introduced traffic wardens into the mix of the regulation and control of traffic in Grenada. And you will recall, Blossom, that in September, late September, as a private citizen, not late September, mid-October, as a private citizen, I brought a constitutional motion before the court challenging the validity of that 2018 amendment to the Road Traffic Act that brought the traffic wardens into operation. Now, the main purpose of that was to ensure that our government looks after our people rather than looking after its political interests, its narrow political interests. Because the Constitution at Section 89 deals with the police service and how the police service is to be treated. And then, of course, we have the Police Act and the Road Traffic Act. And the Police Act is very specific in terms of the police functions, one of them being regulation and control of traffic. And then you have the Police Act, that section 4, specifying the various ranks. And only police officers under our Constitution can carry out police functions. Now, what the government has done is that they've introduced the traffic wardens and have not given them police, the positions of police officers, enjoying all the rights of police officers, including security of tenure, job security, and entitlement to pension under Section 91 of the Constitution. They've not done that. What they did is that they created this separate transport board, which purported to hire the traffic wardens. And in mine and in the view of my lawyer, we believe that breached the Constitution. So while you hire these traffic wardens in an insecure setting, not permanent, they don't have job security, you entrap them in a way, for want of a better word, into a certain degree of loyalty to the political party in office that employ them. Because had they been employed, for example, as regular police officers, as they should be, they wouldn't have this fear. They would have no fear or no concern really as to their job security, and therefore will not be inhibited in their political support and loyalties. And that's how we see it. It's all about numbers, not about making laws for the peace, order, and good governance of the country, which is what the Constitution says. So we in the NDC, again, we are going to exercise our role, being the main opposition party, as guardians of the people and guardians of the Constitution. So I made this challenge, and it seems to me, having looked at this new amendment, that this new amendment is a response to the constitutional challenge that I have filed, which, by the way, has not been heard by the court as yet. But it seems to me that there's an attempt now to directly address the issues that I raise. But in my respectful view, I don't think that this amendment will cure the breaches that are occurring in the existing situation, where how the traffic wardens are appointed and employed, right? So what they've done now is to introduce, rather than a transport board, they've now introduced a statutory body by this amendment, transport commission, right? And in so doing, not only it seems to me that they have not fixed the problem that I raised in the suit, but they have compounded the problem and have left out, excluded the bus drivers and the bus associations from participating in the very trade that they ply. Because the new Grenada Transport Commission that they have set up leaves out, excludes the bus drivers and association from representation on the board. Under the old transport board, the Bus Drivers Association, they had 2 representatives on that board. With this new dispensation, they are not represented at all. However, this very commission will have the power to set rates and fares and tolls and so for these private businessmen who are performing a public function. And that by itself can give rise to another legal challenge. All right? Because here you have it, a board, a new commission set up, making decisions for people who will not have a say, who will not have a seat at the table or a voice. Yes? This is the difficulty that the bus drivers and so would legitimately have in relation to this amendment to the road traffic legislation.
Okay, so all right, so let me understand. Let me make sure we're both on the same page with the concerns.
Many questions, because I want to be very clear for the viewers.
All right, so the concern is that the traffic wardens, the appointment of the traffic wardens is unconstitutional. Does that?
It's unconstitutional.
Is that another way of saying they are illegal? Or the duties they perform, or the charges that they lay on me?
Yes, what is happening, is that they are now performing police functions when they are not police officers. as contemplated by the Constitution and by the Police Act. And only police officers can carry out police functions.
So that, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yes. And in addition to that, not only does the Constitution say, but the courts, our highest court, the Privy Council, has already ruled on this issue, in that it says in two separate cases, the Privy Council has said already that government cannot delegate certain functions, which it must carry out by virtue of the Constitution. The Constitution gives government certain functions to carry out, and while they could delegate some, there are some core functions, including defense and policing, that government cannot delegate to anybody else. So the same issue they have, the same difficulty they had with the transport board that was set up when they first amended the legislation in 2018, they will continue to have. I respectfully say so. I suspect the court will tell them, you will continue to have the same problem with this new amendment. So that's point one.
So then the tickets that they issue are illegal?
They are not authorized. And in fact, that's my case. That's the case I brought before the court. I got a ticket. And the person who issued me with the ticket, as far as I'm concerned, had no authority under our Constitution to issue me with the ticket.
So then, okay, so if they're not supposed to issue the tickets, let's say they're unconstitutional now, they're not supposed to issue the tickets, does that mean I don't have to pay the ticket?
Well, put it this way, I have not paid mine. In response to being issued with the ticket, I filed a motion, a constitutional motion in the court, because as far as I'm concerned, and my lawyer has advised me, the ticket is invalid because it was issued by somebody who had no authority to issue it.
Okay. And in relation to, go ahead.
Yeah, and I rather suspect that having looked at my claim, the AG sees some merit in it, and I believe that is what inspired this new amendment that is causing so much disquiet to the Bus Drivers Association.
So in your view, the response to your claim, to your filing, is the amendment or the setting up of the commission?
Yes, and it's an attempt just to fix it, to fix the deficiency that I've pointed out. I verily believe so.
So if the amendment follows up your suit, what effect would it have? Let's say it is passed in both houses. What effect would it have on the suit?
None. None. It would have no effect because my suit came before. It wouldn't cure my ticket or any other invalid ticket that went before.
Okay.
So it is to fix the issue going forward.
Going forward.
Yes, but I have again looked at it, and I do not think that issue would be fixed even with this amendment. As a matter of fact, it may well be that they've created another problem that didn't exist before, in that they have now left the bus drivers out, and they are complaining, and they are right to complain. They've now left them out of participating in their own business. Imagine there's this commission who's going to sit there outside of the bus drivers associations and set fares and rates and so for them. It's like if government would be going into food land, right? And fixing price. Now, yes, we do have a regime to control prices and so. But in terms of whether food land charges 50 cents more than under, right, or 25 cents more than food fare, government cannot interfere at that level. And this is what, by leaving the bus drivers out of this new commission, this is exactly what they're doing, while quite likely not fixing the deficiency that I pointed out in this that I.
So the 7-member commission, the traffic commission that may or would be formed, who makes up those 7 people?
So we have the commission here. Let me pull it up here so I can read it for you in terms of the composition of the commission. One second, I'm pulling it. Commissioner of Police or his designate, the permanent secretary with responsibility for transport, one senior representative of the ministry. Blossom, let me just stop you. There's somebody with a meter outside my house.
I was about, as soon as you were about to end, I was going to tell you, let's take a break and figure out what the sound was.
Yes.
So let's take a break. Yes, let's take a break and do that.
Because he is disturbing me, and I imagine it's coming through.
Yes, you read my mind. So we're going to take a quick break and sort out the background weed eater man, as we call them, and be right back. This is To The Point on Classic and GBN.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Welcome back to The Point, speaking with Public Relations Officer of the NDC, Claudette Joseph. Before we took the break, Ms. Joseph, we were looking at the composition of the 7-member Traffic Commission. You were telling me who would make up those positions.
So it's the Commissioner of Police or his designate, the Permanent Secretary with responsibility for transport, so the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, one senior representative from the Ministry with responsibility for infrastructure, and that person must have expertise in engineering. So I imagine somebody like the chief technical officer, some engineer from the Ministry of Infrastructure, which used to be the Ministry of Works. And then 4 persons with knowledge, very broad, 4 persons with knowledge and experience in appropriate disciplines, including policy and management of transport, insurance, and law. Now, previously, there was a specific provision there that says 2 persons from the bus drivers and bus owners associations. So that there has been removed. So you have policy and management of transport, you have insurance, you have law, you have the engineer from the Ministry of Infrastructure, you have the permanent secretary, and you have the police commissioner or his designate.
So the part of the act that calls or that would give the commission the responsibility of setting fares, and so does it specifically say just for bus drivers, or does it say for all payable?
All. It
all
doesn't
payable.
specify. It doesn't specify the bus drivers and bus owners. It says the Grenada Transport Commission shall advise the minister on all matters pertaining to road transport and traffic, including transport fares, rates, tolls, duties, and other charges, licenses with respect to motor vehicles and other vehicles, and so on, road safety regulations and control. You know, even things like road safety or so. The busmen who are plying the various routes, they would be, in my mind, and in the mind of those of us in the NDC, they would be integral and critical to advising the police, for example, or the Transport Commission in changes in the routes and the like. You know, if there's to be a change in location, you cannot do these things. You're going to change the fare. You cannot do these things without the bus drivers, taxi drivers, and so the vehicles for hire, without they having a seat at the table and being part of the discussion and the decision making. Because we know under this administration, when you talk about consultation, because one of the things they can argue is that, well, we will consult them. First of all, there is absolutely no provision in this amendment for consultation. So that will be entirely at the discretion of the commission to do so if they wish. And we know what is meant by consultation under this administration. Consultation means they decide, they do the thing, and then they come and they tell us. Like as occurred with the COVID bill or the Electronic Crimes Act, all of the, we have a history, we have precedent for what this administration means by consultation, right? So we in the NDC, we see no justification. None was offered in the parliamentary debate, and none is offered in the bill for the exclusion of representatives from the Bus Drivers Association and the Taxi Drivers Association in this change here. Added to that, we say make laws as the Constitution mandates you to do. Make laws for good governance. The Constitution says so. Parliament may make laws for peace, order, and good governance. Make laws for good governance. Good governance is not leaving out your key stakeholders in areas where they should be integral and heavily included. Making laws for good governance is not setting up a regime acting as police, a kind of auxiliary arm there, which is unconstitutional, just for the purpose of counting votes. If there is a gap in the police service, if there is a need to hire new police officers or to introduce a new level of police ranking, then do so constitutionally. Hire these young people properly, give them security of tenure so that they do not feel beholden to any political party or to any administration. And you know, one of the things the traffic wardens, I'm sure, will be told, as the Imanis were told, is that if you don't vote for us, when the NDC come, they will scrap you, right? That's what the Imanis were told, and I'm sure that's what the traffic wardens, I could take a guess, that's what the traffic wardens will be told. Well, I have news for the traffic wardens. Our NDC administration will ensure that you have security of tenure, because we will go back, we will change the law, and we will do it the way the Constitution says it should be done. And once it is done that way, you will be securely part of the police force. That means you will have an opportunity for promotion. So a traffic warden today will be able to become commissioner of police in future, right? As it stands now, all they can do is be traffic wardens. They cannot even get promoted to constable as it is now. It is just so unfair. It's awful what they're doing to our young people.
So how does the amendment to the traffic bill play into another aspect of the conversation that started over the weekend in relation to criminalizing traffic offenses?
Right. So I have looked carefully at the at the bill, and I don't see any evidence of that in the bill. I think it was a misunderstanding on the part of the bus drivers or the busmen. And I heard a clip from Senator Winston Garvey where he was debating the bill in the parliament. And I think that's where the confusion occurred, because he wasn't clear in terms of what he was talking about. But I believe he was talking about the tax administration bill, and somehow he got it kind of mixed up with the Road Traffic Act, and that is where the confusion started. So, and I think that kind of highlights how you must have quality people in our parliament and people who know what they're talking about, so that you don't cause confusion in the public, because the amendment to the Road Traffic Act itself doesn't create any criminal offense in relation to the traffic offenses. It doesn't do what I see people saying it does. And that is something as a public service, and now I'm putting on my lawyer cap, I would like to do as a public service to clear up here, because when we have to maintain our credibility as well, right? When we criticize government, we must do so with justification, right? And when a mistake is made, we must be humble and honest enough to accept that a mistake was made. So if you notice, the NDC did not comment on it because we were not seeing the complaint that was being leveled. The amendment to the Road Traffic Act, as far as we see, does not do what it is being accused of doing. It does not criminalize traffic offenses to the point where you end up with a criminal record. That is not so. Okay. That's not what we're seeing. No, the tax administration... Before you go on to the tax administration bill, there's a question, well, the same question on Facebook and on WhatsApp, basically asking, why did you not address the unconstitutionality of the traffic wardens before you got the ticket? Why is it now you're coming forward with it? Okay, let me explain that. In order to bring an action in court, whether it's under the Constitution or otherwise, you must have what the law describes as standing. It's a Latin phrase, standing, a loca standi, which means you must have standing, you must have a legal basis or a legal right that you can enforce, right? So in relation to the suit that I brought, I could not do so unless I have a ticket. Only a person who got a ticket will have standing. So now I have this ticket in hand. I am liable to pay a fine, and therefore I have a legal right to employ any law available to me in defense of that charge. But even before the lawsuit, though, couldn't you have spoken out about it then, about the unconstitutionality of the traffic wardens, instead of waiting? I believe I did at least in at least one of our previous press conference, and I know other lawyers had mentioned it before. I mean, you know, I know other people have, but I'm sure when it came out in 2018, I believe I did raise the fact that this wasn't done properly, right? Mind you, it's not that it cannot be done, you know, right? But it must be done properly. And if it is done properly, our young people will have job security. And in fact, that's the main thing that inspired me, because let's face it, Blossom, the ticket is $150, right? The ticket is $150. So anybody could challenge the ticket. But my inspiration for challenging the validity of that ticket is to look out for the young people. Because when the court rules, they will be treated as police officers as set up by the Constitution, and therefore entitled to all the benefits, including the opportunity for promotion and advancement.
All right, let's quickly move on now to the tax administration bill, the amendment bill, and the concerns
Right.
that you and the NDC have with relation to that.
Right. So the tax amendment bill, what it does, well, one of the things we said in the NDC since during the last election campaign is that we have no other productive industry in Grenada. We have no productive sector in Grenada. The government has not invested in the productive sectors. Government pursued a one-track policy of tourism. And well, you see what's happening with tourism and COVID-19. Although it appears that our government is burying its head in the sand because it keeps pursuing the tourism line when we actually do not know when the world would recover from this pandemic so as to allow the tourism industry to resume. So that what we are left with is taxation as almost the singular source of revenue for government. There are no factories there. There's nothing else. No investment in fisheries. The oil and gas was a big bramble, right? We are not getting anything from that. I see they put out a misleading propaganda sheet the other day, what they call an update. Plenty lies in there, right? So taxes is what the government is running this country on. Tax, and more tax. So what they've done now is to introduce a new element into the administration of taxation in Grenada that is similar to what they call in the United States a plea bargain. So they created some offenses where there were offenses under the Tax Act before, right? So if you don't pay your tax on time, you do a penalty, you pay a penalty, that kind of thing. So we have a situation in Grenada where the informal sectors of the economy, you're talking about farmers, fishermen, shopkeepers, a little barbecue man on the side, the barber, the informal economy, by and large, do not file income tax returns, do not pay taxes. Now, we have no difficulty with the government attempting to broaden the net and so as to allow or to provide for as many people as possible to pay their taxes. As a matter of fact, Blossom, during the last election campaign, in our manifesto, we had such a proposal about broadening the tax base so that the net is spread wider and the 2,000 or so Grenadians who pay taxes religiously are not burdened with all of the income tax and other tax burdens. What did the NNP do? The NNP during their campaign, they told the people, NDC going to tax you. They say they're going to broaden the tax base. They make an old mass with that on their Hard Talk program and on their platform, right? These are the games they play. But this year is exactly that. They're looking to broaden the tax base, and they have introduced an element that the NDC would most likely not have introduced because it's oppressive. It has the potential to harass law-abiding citizens. So, an officer here now, an authorized officer, that would be a tax collector, may form the view, they say reasonably believe, that you commit an offense. In other words, you ain't paying as much taxes as you should pay, or you're skiffing or whatnot. And they will issue you with a fixed penalty notice, similar to a traffic ticket. And they will say, pay, we don't believe. We don't believe, right? Whether they have basis or not, we don't know. But we have reason to believe that you are not paying your fair share of taxes. So here is a tax ticket. I'm calling it a tax ticket. You could call it that. Here's a tax ticket, similar to a traffic ticket. And you pay X amount, say $750 or $500, pay that now, and we're leaving you alone, right? If you refuse, if you challenge, if you defend this ticket and you lose, you could pay up to 25,000, up to 30,000, a lot more. Okay? And of course, if you can't pay that, you're going to end up in prison. That's basically what this is, what this tax administration amendment bill is doing. So they have introduced what I'm going to call a tax ticket similar to a traffic ticket. So you can get a ticket, it's either you pay it up. So it's another way of making money. Because I may honestly believe, well, or know that, look, I am not, I am paying my fair share of taxes, right? It opens the door for them to target certain people. So I may say, look, I am paying my fair share of taxes, but I don't want the harassment of having to go to court and having maybe the court rule against me on some technicality or some other thing. I ain't taking that risk. And then I had to pay a lawyer several $1,000s. I might as well just pay the $750. So this is what this tax administration amendment bill is essentially doing. This is what it is essentially doing. And so in our view, there's a danger. There's a danger for using the tax law to victimize people. Let us face it. Let us face it. We do have a culture of victimization and vindictiveness in this country and targeting certain people. Let's face it, we do. So certain people may get targeted with tax tickets. Certain people may even get harassed with tax tickets. You might get one every year or every quarter. You ain't paying enough stamp tax. You ain't paying enough income tax. You ain't paying enough corporation tax, right? You ain't paying enough for whatever tax, property tax. And you get, well, property tax may not be so much. Yes, it covers property taxes, right? So this is the danger we see in this amendment. And of course, there is the exposed deception, because broadening the tax base, which is what we said in our manifesto, that they beat us upon, oh, the NDC coming behind you all for tax. This is exactly what this is doing, broadening the tax base. So busmen, you remember when Dr. Mitchell said, busmen are coming back for you? Fishermen, taxi drivers, farmers, your little person with the shop on the side. Remember when Dr. Mitchell said, I'm coming back for you? Well, this is it. They've come back.
A question on Facebook is asking, as an attorney, do you know if the Bar Association was consulted on these bills prior to them going to Parliament?
The Bar Association was not consulted on these bills.
Either one of them, the traffic or the tax amendment?
The traffic or the tax amendment.
Okay.
Because normally it will be sent to all members of the bar. I did not really receive them, and I checked other members, other colleagues, and they did not receive it. And I checked members of the executive. So I can say that the bar was not consulted, just like the COVID bill. You see, whenever mischief is going to be made, right? Whenever they're going to deviate from what the Constitution says the function of Parliament is, to make laws for the peace, order, and good governance. Whenever they're going to deviate from that, it doesn't come to the bar. And these did not come to the bar.
This is a point. I know we have other topics, but in the meantime, let's open the phone lines for our viewers and listeners who may have questions for Ms. Joseph. This is your opportunity to do so. The landline 435-2041. WhatsApp, it's also 435-2041. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. You can also post your comments, questions, concerns on the GBN, Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page and the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. Let's go to our first caller, and please, callers, please keep it respectful. Good morning, caller.
Welcome, good morning. I want to ask Claudette if that law that she just talked about in relation to the tax, if it's unconstitutional, because I heard I was talking about in terms of laws, whether it's constitutional or unconstitutional. Too, I just want to make a comment to Claudette. Claudette, you know, every time I come on the station, people have a problem with me, because I always tell these people who are public servants, like Keith Mitchell and them, that they are accountable to us and we pay their salary. You know, I just wanted to comment on it because I think accountability is very important in office. And I respect everybody in the world. And I want people to know, and I want you to just clarify that we are paying their salary and they are accountable to us. And therefore, when they're coming on these programs, they have to answer the questions. But when you say that, everybody comment that, oh, you disrespect Keith Mitchell and you disrespect the person. Tell the people for me, please, as you're there, that we are paying them and they have to answer the questions, and whatever we do they do for us, they are not doing us a favor. That is their job, and we don't have to thank them. So could you reaffirm what I'm saying, please?
Thank you very much, caller, and you are absolutely correct. And I hope, Blossom, we have time for me to address a little bit the issue of the airport loan, because this point that the caller makes will fit right into that on the question of accountability and transparency and so on. But caller, in response to your question about whether this tax administration bill is unconstitutional, I have not looked at it from that aspect as to the constitutionality, but nothing really jumps out at me as being unconstitutional. You know, like when you read the road traffic amendment bill, and so you could see right away it's unconstitutional. When you read the COVID bill, you could see it jumps out, the unconstitutionality would jump out at you. I can't say so in this case. So at the moment, I have not seen evidence of that, but that doesn't mean that it isn't, because this administration has shown that it does not respect our Constitution. So a deeper scrutiny might find otherwise, but as it stands now, I'm not seeing anything that appears to be unconstitutional. What I see is oppression and repressive tax regime, which is actually a thing in law, right? You have progressive taxation, you have regressive, you know. So this is actually a thing in law. And what I'm seeing here is using the tax regime to oppress people and possibly harass and victimize opponents.
Let me write down the airport. We'll get back to the airport loan in a short. Let me take this caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Citizen Welsh, and to your guest, Citizen Joseph. Listen, two things. I can't use that word, but I can speak of the intestinal and voluntary fortitude, Citizen Joseph. Do you have that level of intestinal and voluntary fortitude to challenge this law or amendment, so to speak, as institutional extortion? Because clearly to me, that is what it is. You're using the power of the government and the state to bleed the people and to force them. You have views on that. The second thing is you have stressed on various occasions the issue of the Constitution. Have you people and your party done any studies relative to the legitimacy, validity, and legal authority of the said document, which we refer to today as our supreme law or Constitution, so you can make some comments on that? Thank you very much and have a nice day, will you?
Thank you, Citizen Rollo.
Thank you, Citizen Rollo. It's been a while since I've heard you. It's good to hear you sounding so well. I hope you are keeping well. I think there's the latter question you asked. We've had this conversation before, and the answer is yes. I know you have a different view, but as it stands now, the NDC considers the Constitution of Grenada a proper and valid document. I know you're going to take me on next time I come back for saying that, but yes, we respectfully do not share your view in terms of the Constitution.
And he also asked if you have, and I quote, the intestinal fortitude to challenge the constitutionality of the law.
Well, he knows that I do have intestinal fortitude, and if once we examine this tax administration amendment bill in a deeper way, if we find there to be any breaches of our Constitution, certainly if it can be done, we will pursue it, because we have to stand as defenders of our democracy and our people. And as Mr. Rollo, Citizen Rollo, quite correctly said, this is really an attempt to bleed. We just wanted to broaden the base to make things more even and fair. Well, this here is to bleed and drain people and suck everything, rather than, it's kind of quite lazy of the government, really, because they should apply the collective and creative minds to diversifying our economy, to finding other ways of generating revenue, to undoing the bad deal that was done with GPG in relation to our natural gas and oil resources, and to pursuing avenues in terms of renewable energy. Build 2 factories here. The whole heap of concrete structures that you're building under the guise of tourism, that only creates some temporary construction jobs, right? So we want our people to have a more predictable and permanent and stable and secure quality of life. That's what we want in the NDC.
There's a WhatsApp question. What can the Bar Association do, seeing that they were excluded from consultation on those bills, on the amendment bills?
Well, the Bar Association, through its members, can speak out on matters, as it did with the COVID-19 bill. It can do that, and I'm sure members of the Bar, there are some members who will speak on it, and of course, the members of the Bar can assist citizens who wish to challenge the validity of these laws.
And Ms. Evan asked a question about accountability, and you said you wanted to say something in relation to the loan for the MBIA development that speaks to the accountability part of that question. Go ahead.
Yes, so recently there's been an announcement that there is some 67 or so million US dollars being borrowed for a number of things. We hear of the construction of a second taxiway. We hear of the construction of a hotel. We hear of improvement of the air traffic control area. We hear a number of things. Now, the first thing, and there's been a lot of calls on the NDC to comment on this matter. The first difficulty is that this loan agreement was not made public. There is no transparency whatsoever in relation to this airport loan. So the questions that arise as to whether it is a good move at this time, whether in light of the pandemic it is something that government should have proceeded with anyway, whether there were other loans available. I read an article in one of the newspapers indicating that as far as the airport manager is concerned, for departure, the foam, the security foam that was not available, that caused the flights not to be able to land, that was used really as a pretext to ensure her exit. But really, the real beef with her was that she objected to this loan. This is what the article reported, right? So the question then is whether there was a loan from another source, say the World Bank, that government should have availed itself of, right? We do not know, Blossom, the terms, we do not know the interest, we do not know moratorium, if any. We know, for example, with the World Bank and CDB loans and so, there's usually about a 10-year moratorium, right? And interest doesn't start to run for a long time. We do not know if interest starts to run immediately as the first drawdown is made on this loan. We also know that there are a lot of restrictions and conditionalities attaching to loans from, say, the World Bank or so. We do not know what restrictions, we do not know whether the government will have any wiggle room to divert any of these loan funds from the airport to elsewhere. And we saw what happened on the last occasion in 2018 when we had an election. State resources were used to shore up a political campaign, which is why the OAS and the CARICOM observers called for campaign financing laws, which we do not have as yet, and are not expected to get under this NNB. So there's a lot of unknowns in relation to this specific loan. Are we going to be able to repay this loan? Blossom, this loan is about the same amount as the Grenlec judgment. This is another $200 or so million without interest. So how are we going to pay back this loan? Will the airport generate enough revenues to repay this loan? We just had structural adjustment program, stringent structural adjustment program, and the Prime Minister boasts a lot of moving our debt to GDP ratio from 110% to down to close to the 60% that is recommended by the IMF. Now, I was speaking with one economist, and he said to me, this loan could bring us right back to in the region of 110%. If we are not able to pay, and all of the experts in the field are questioning our ability to pay, because they are saying the airport simply does not generate the kind of revenue needed to sustain that loan. And what happens? What happens in the event of a default? Is a judgment going to be taken up against us when we cannot pay? Will the entire loan be called in immediately as there is a default? Because these are the kinds of conditions that I understand usually attached to loans from this specific source. You default, whereas other institutions or so may give you a grace period and restructure whatnot. I understand that loans from this particular source, they get called in one time as a default. And then what happens, just as with other major countries and contracts, the dispute is not settled in Grenadian courts or in the courts in China. They are settled before ICSID, the same tribunal before which government lost the Grenlec case, right? So the judgment will come down from ICSID, and then what's going to happen? We are going to start getting squeezed, right? So we are calling in the NDC for a publication of this loan agreement. There is a public finance management law that contemplates complete transparency. It gives the Minister of Finance the power to enter into these debt arrangements on behalf of the government of Grenada, but it also requires transparency. It was normal, it was a common thing in the past for these loan guarantees and these loan agreements to form part of the parliamentary documents, because you have to get parliamentary approval to take these loans, you know. You can't get these loans without the parliament approving it. Now, in the past, say for the National Stadium, all the agreements relating to the National Stadium, they're in the laws of Grenada. I could go pull them up and you can read them, right? All these things, but it started when they started the Grenlec deal in 1994 that the NNP likes to call is a bad deal. That is part of the laws of Grenada. It is attached to the Electricity Supply Act 1994. So this whole agreement, any member of the public could go and read it and scrutinize it and criticize it. We have a set of secret deals as though these people are running their own little company and the public mustn't know their business. And even with companies, the big companies, they issue financial statements annually and they tell their shareholders what's going on. But we have complete secrecy. So the NDC and all other commentators and persons who would want to offer critical analysis of this thing, we are handicapped because we do not know what the government has done in relation to this loan.
When I hosted the Minister of Tourism and Civil Aviation, Clarence Medesko, in about 2-3 weeks, this day of the sod turning. She did promise to make the information available. So let's keep hope alive.
That was
the day of the sod turning, whether it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right, and the agreement is signed. We know that they have announced that, so it exists.
Well, she probably just hasn't had the time or in COVID time.
What does it take to email it to you, Blossom?
She doesn't have my email.
Well, email it to.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Plain devil's advocate.
Email it to GVN, right? But this is a serious thing, and you see, this is a consequence. I don't want to ever miss the opportunity to tell our people that this is a consequence of not electing an opposition in the parliament.
I was going to ask about opposition. There's a question, well, really a comment on the YouTube, but I'll twist it a bit. Since Mr. Tobias Clements' appointment as opposition leader, has there been any collaboration, discussion with the NDC? I won't say joining forces, but in terms of being the opposition or speaking out against things the government do? I know there won't be an official tying of the minds between Mr. Clement and the NDC, but in terms of the topics that we want to discuss and so, has there been that collaboration?
Not in a formal way as far as I know. But I know Mr. Clement has good relations with some members of the NDC, and he's also quite an approachable person, and so I don't know that there has been any formal arrangement or so, but I know for a fact that he has spoken on occasions with different members and gotten their perspective on things and has shared his own. And I totally agree with that person that what I see here in Grenada is that we are in a situation where little by little we are having an erosion of our democracy and our democratic institution. You know something? This fixed penalty and this kind of concept of plea bargaining, which we don't have in our law, that is being introduced now. So it kind of forces you into pleading guilty for something you may not even feel you're guilty of. That was part of the COVID-19 bill, right? That was part. So they didn't get through with the COVID-19 bill, but in different ways and in different bits of legislation, these provisions keep showing themselves up. So we have to stand together in defense of Grenada. That's what we have to do. So, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up because we've run out of time for the program this morning. Yes, that hour flew by. So I just wanted to thank you so much, Ms. Joseph. We definitely dealt with some things and shed some light, especially me, on some of the other topics. So thank you so much and have yourself a good day today.
You're most welcome, Blossom, and I hope to be back soon. Thank you very much to all of your viewers. Have a good day.
Enjoy. That was Public Relations Officer of the National Democratic Congress, Claudette Joseph. We thank her so much for being our guest, and thank you for our viewers and listeners who tuned into the program this morning. Janelle and Joseph is up next with the Christmas Caravan. I know I've stolen about 2 minutes of the program, but they are up next. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, God willing. Have yourself a blessed and favorable Tuesday.